Hello and welcome back to me and my screwdriver, the only channel that said they have little to no interest in Die of Death, and then put like 10 hours into the new update despite it coming out like a few days ago. I've been having a lot of fun with this update, right? I think a lot of people have. I do have some issues, right? Now, okay. I was quite happy when I first saw the discourse surrounding this game and its balancing, right? Because a lot of people pointed out the maps are not very well balanced, and I agree. I 100% agree. That's what this entire video is going to be about, right? Super excited. You guys know the ASM community. Come on. Some people do not know anything about balancing. A lot of people don't know anything about balancing. You to this day still see people saying that Slasher is too weak, or is too strong, or Elliot is too weak, or with Bite by Night, Ennard is apparently too strong. Apparently, Security Guard is too weak. So on and so forth, right? This community fucking sucks, right? And I was almost, happy for once. But then people said that it's because the maps are killer-sided. So what I want to do in this video is kind of prove that they are not killer-sided, like in the slightest, and are instead pretty fucking busted on the killer side, or on the survivor side, sorry. By showing just how easy it is to loop every single map in this game. Hopefully this is at least somewhat interesting. And if it's not, I don't care. I'm gonna have fun making this. Starting off with the new map that I don't know the fucking name of, I'm gonna be so real. I think this is definitely the most broken map in the game currently. I don't think it's a competition. That's a lie, actually. There are a lot of maps that are very good in this game. I'm just gonna start off with what's obvious. This right here. I think, at least me personally, I realized immediately this was a problem when I first loaded into this map. I am very sorry to the pursuer that I absolutely cooked in the flashlight LMS. Because it's like, Jesus Christ, look at this shit. This is an extremely good loop. If you're not fucking bumping into shit like I am right now. Sorry, I'm not really locked in, right? An extremely easy loop to take. Like, the collisions on the cylindrical pipes are a little bit weird to get your head around at first, and then you figure it out, and it's quite fine. And what makes this even worse is it is very easy to chain this to other loops on the map. Now, I'll first talk about this little section, right? If you somehow get zoned into this part of the map, maybe there's Artful Wall here, and it's also Double Trouble, so a pursuer's coming this way, right? So you're zoned into this part of the map. You can make use of this. You can kind of treat it as a double helix loop. You can take it from that side, or you can go on this side. If you ask me, I think the most efficient way to loop this would probably be like this, right? But you got to keep in mind, this is going to be very easy for a killer to mind game. If you're running here, a killer's going to catch on eventually and just come around this way, or vice versa over here. Here it'd be even easier. If you come up this way, let's say like killer's here, you're like here at this point. Sorry, my cursor's not on. I need to remember that you guys can't see my cursor. You're here, killer's here. They can very easily just come around here, just whack you. So it's pretty simple to mind game on the killer's point of view. But if you're zoned here, this can be useful, and it's very easy to come off this loop to it. Now, if you're being chased around this way on this loop and you want to get to the rest of the map, which is also really broken, easily you just go here, and then you just run like this. Take this quite tight, and then you're at this loop here. Alternatively, if you're being chased around this side, you're going to want to leave when you're right here. Take this tight, and you get to the same endpoint, right? Now, if you look at this loop, there is technically, this is a really good loop, right? But the killer can do something. If you're being chased around this way, the killer can very easily cut you off by going up that ramp, right? Obviously, they do not get the stagger effect. You do, so they can take this path, but you can't. Think of this like a killer door, essentially, right? This is going to be good for the killer cutting you off, right? But if you come around this way instead, what are they meant to do, really? If they come up here, they can't really mind game this, right? Because if they go up there, this gives you ample time to just go back to this loop, which you want to be, if you can, looping this whenever possible, right? Now, if the killer is quite close by when you get to this point, let's say they're like around here, it might be a bit risky to, turn left here, right? You want to more be going on a straight enough path, which is great because there's still more stuff you can use in this area. So you could just come over here instead of looping this and go into this room. Now, both of these little structures here, this table with the little purple fucker on it, and this skeleton display, Neither of these are particularly strong, but you can almost use this as a kind of weak double helix. But more importantly, if you come over here, you then have a extremely strong loop here. There is a well-placed killer door here, but of course you can check spot this pretty easily as well. See the killer come around this way, then you can just come here, vice versa over here. And this gives you, if you are being chased around this way, it's very easy to chain it back to this loop. Or if you get pushed around to this side, again, very easy to chain onto this loop, although you'll actually be taking it wrong there. So there is ways for the killer to push you away from taking this loop efficiently, in all fairness. But, I mean, come on. Other killers in public servers going to do that? Come on, be honest, be honest, be honest, right? Now, on top of all of this, there's also this loop here, this little L wall, right? Again, very strong. L walls are always just pretty strong, and this one's no different, right? Just look at it, okay? And also here, you've got this thing here, which is also a sort of double helix. It's very similar to the Bloodfell Manor loop in Forsaken, just a lot weaker, to be honest. Again, this is one where I wouldn't really bother taking it if you don't have to. If you get pushed over to it, though, it could be nice to make use of. And right here, kind of a weak loop, just a little table here. Again, though, it's these smaller loops that make it very easy to chain stuff on this map, right? Or just the maps in general in this game, right? So let's do a worked example. I'm going to do this on every single map, right? I'll show sort of like a route that I would probably take. So let's say we start here. We're going to say that the killer is coming from this side, right? Now they're actually going to be quite close to me, so I'm going to be running. I'm going to take the loop round once, just to, show off the loop, really. And then I'm going to break off here, right? Now we're going to say the killer is still close to me, so I'm going to just walk past this loop for now. And I'm then just going to go straight onto this loop, right? Now, the killer's going to be following me at this point. This is where they're likely to try and go for a check spot, right? Or, sorry, try and make use of the killer door. Let's say that they are baiting me and they don't actually go through the killer door and instead come around this way. That's great, because then I can come over here and I can take this loop as efficiently as possible, right? So now you're in a really good spot to loop this. I don't know, maybe it's an artful and he places a wall here for whatever reason, right? Now it's kind of scary to loop this because they can very easily cut you off while you have to go around here. That's fine, because now you can chain it straight over to this loop. Make use of the L wall. You can loop around this once or twice, right? And then we can very easily break off, come over here. Loop this a couple times. Loop it once more, because then you can very easily come over to the table here, right? And then from here, you can, sorry, this is probably a bad way of doing that. You can loop around this, loop around this, cut through here, come straight back onto the L wall. And, I mean, from the L wall, you can very easily either go back to this area of the map, or, even come in here, go onto there. There's so much you can do from this L wall. There's a lot of freedom on this map. It doesn't really matter where you go. There is a strong loop to be taken. Which is what makes this map so busted for survivors. Even if we're looking at, like, the middle here, there's, like, this little wall here, so this is a little filler spot. If, you need to maybe move from here and go straight over to this loop, you do have this little filler loop here that can be quite useful. And then again, very easy to chain over here. So there's just a lot that civilians can use on this map. Now, I'm gonna have this conversation right now rather than, doing it at the end or doing it on every single map, because I think it's convenient to show off on this map. Yes, killers can do things to break these loops, right? Artful is a great killer. I think that Artful is a really good killer at the moment because of how a lot of maps have been built around him very clearly, right? This little gap would not be here if it wasn't exactly big enough to fit an implement. I'll show you, it is exactly big enough to fit an implement, right? Now that's true, but you got to remember, right? Killers have to set these up, right? And if you look, Artful goes on, I believe it's a 13 or 12 second cooldown. I'll do it once again just to double check. If we implement here, plus the 2 second wind up and then a 13 second cooldown. That's 15 seconds to be putting down a wall, which doesn't sound like a lot. But if you want to trap down the entire map at the start of the round, you simply cannot do that, because then you'll be wasting a minute 15 seconds, not even considering copyrights, which, by the way, I would put it here to make it difficult to change from this loop to this loop and vice versa, right? Which actually has a really short cooldown. I don't know why it's not the same for implement. That seems like it would make Artful a little bit more viable. but just how long it takes to set up, just to make, you know, some of the loops weak, because you can't break every loop really. You know, like you can put one on this one on this loop, one on this loop, one on this loop, maybe something in this room, but then you've still got the smaller stuff that you could be chained to, right? You still would have this wall, and then be able to make over to the table, make over to the desk, vice versa, so on and so forth, right? So while killers do definitely have counterplay, right? It takes time, and they can't really counter everything on most maps. So that's my little rebuttal to any, you know, arguments that killers have set up. And also, Pursuer exists. The poor fucking bastard, right? Poor guy just existing. Moving on to Teapot Paradise. This might be better than the other map. I think it's one of these two as the most insane maps for looping, and I'm going to show you why. Here it is. This is why. You can just loop around this very central area, very easy to chain from other loops onto, just for so long. And the killer has really no counterplay to it. Now, the main counterplay that a killer's going to have is these two spots, right? And both of them are very easy to counter. So if you're looping through this way, the killer's going to want to use this, right? Which, I mean, if you see them going through this way, you can just wait here, wait for them to, you know, commit to one path. Or, if you're really scared, look right here, right? You've got a loop that you can very easily come onto. This is like a nice little double helix. Pretty simple to make use of. Really not difficult to use at all. And alternatively, if you're being chased this way and the killer comes up here, again, you can just wait for them to either commit to dropping down or doubling back, or you wait here. You're a little bit scared to, you know, make a judgment. You got the rock right here, and you're fine. You're perfectly fine. You know, there's really not a whole lot that the killer can do when it comes to countering this loop, right? I mean, like Artful, Artful. I think is a pretty solid killer because of this update, right? They can put their wall, so you're not always going to be able to use this loop. But I mean, even if they put a wall there, you still have this, you know. So it doesn't really matter what they do. There's kind of something you can do with this loop, right? Let's think of another way that maybe you could how else could they maybe try and counter this loop? Let's see with this here. That'll be the same thing. You could just still run around this area. Let's say they do it here instead. You know, it's the opposite, right? You can just come around here instead, right? So they are going to have to use 2 of their resources to completely counter this loop, right? Which, as we've already explained, not only is, you know, resources that they're using, but it's also going to take time, right? Now, it's not just these 2 loops that it can chain onto, because you've also got this here. You can come over to this wall, right? Run around here a couple times, right? And then there's also this spot here. Now, something you'll notice about this game is that the edges of maps are not really dead zones like they would be in any other ASIM, right? They often, more times than not, still give civilians ample opportunities to evade the killer, right? So let's take this area for example. This could be broken. I'm not going to break it just so I can make use of it for examples, right? Civilian waits here. Killer comes up here. This is the worst case scenario because you obviously can't go straight back to that loop, right? So what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to make use of this. Now, this is very weak, right? The best way to probably use this is to, obviously you've got good visibility here, right? You can see what the killer's doing. Might be a bit difficult to react to it. They're going to have to pick to either go this way or, this way or this way, right? And then you do whichever one they don't do. You obviously chase it. And they can't really double back here because then they'll be wasting stamina, right? The end goal is to eventually end up back on this loop, loop it probably once, and then very smoothly come back onto this loop. Or you can just immediately come back onto this loop from here. You know, you can just immediately do this, right? And it doesn't matter which way you chase around this, you can easily get back onto this loop, right? Alternatively, the killer's chasing you from up here, which is more likely, because more often than not, this is going to be broken. If you are a civilian, break this. 100% break this, right? Then, simple. You just do this. And then you can run around the loop again. Nice. There's also this loop here. I didn't really mention it. It's pretty solid, to be honest. If you have to use it, that's not really too bad. It's a pretty solid loop. And then I think the final area that I've not really made note of. This area is just fine. I wouldn't purposely go over here. If you get zoned to it, it's not the end of the world though. As you'll notice, there is this little pillar here. this can be made use of pretty easily, to be honest. Just run around this, you know. It's not like crazy powerful, but it's still pretty good. You might be able to chain it onto this and make use of that, but I mean, that's kind of weak. Same thing with this little thing over here. But what's more important to note is this here. It's a very similar situation as to over there. If the killer comes up this way, make sure you break this so that they cannot come up this way, but then you just do this, and then you can make it onto this loop that I just mentioned. Or if they do break this, they can't go up there and they come this way, or they just come up this way anyways, then you run back to this loop. No matter what you're doing, you eventually make it back to this loop. Even in this scenario, you loop around this, and then eventually you can break off back onto this loop. This entire map centers around this one area. You want to be abusing everything, right? So let's use it as an example. Let's start from the corner over here. I think that's a good place to start from to demonstrate what you can do, right? So let's what's it? Let's say the killer. It's worst case scenario. You've not broken this. The killer comes up here. Okay, fine, right? So you go this way. You're going to want to mind game this. They're actually coming around from this way, so we're going to run this way around. They're not doubling back, so that's just going to waste their stamina. We're now going to loop this once, right? Get some value out of it. And then we are going to smoothly chain onto this. Now, immediately, the killer knows what we're doing, and they are going to put an implement here, right? That's fine, right? We're just now going to run this. And in fact, the killer doesn't have a whole lot of counterplay now, because if you're running around this way, and you're not, you know, making use of the entire loop, they can't use this to cut you off. And you kind of need to be going this way to, you know, mind game this, right? Mind game this little ramp. So, really, you're in a really safe spot if you're just looping this. But I don't know. Maybe they're tired of this, and they also put this here, right? And you're like at this point, no biggie. You can now run over to this rock. You get a couple loops out of this, and eventually, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to chain onto this, run around this a couple times, right? And then it's not completely smooth, but then you can make it back over here, or make it over here, loop around this, and then you can come back over to that loop. And then you can kind of make use of this little area if this is completely blocked off. That's probably the second strongest portion of the map, right? I mean, overall, just an insane map for civilians. There is just so much that they can do to completely bust the killer's balls. I'm going to be so real. If you get this map as killer against decent civilians, I'm so sorry. I really am. I'm really fucking sorry. These fuckers, they're fucking cunts. Look at that. Look at that. Look at what they did to me. They're dickheads. I hate them. Hate them. Now, moving on to Tundra Trench. This is probably the most unique map of all of them, in the sense that it's not powerful because of the ability to chain loops like every other map is. It's powerful because it's just got two very powerful loops on its own, right? So, I mean, I think they're pretty obvious, but I'll go over them anyways. You've got this massive cave loop here. Now, there is obviously mind game opportunities for the killer. They can make use of this killer door, although, I mean, you can check spot it very easily here. There's not really much risk. And, of course, they can make use of this here to potentially cut people off. And, of course, they can make use of this here to potentially cut people off. But, again, you can check spot it quite nicely here. If you see them coming up this way, you just kind of wait here. If you see them dropping down, cool. You just move over to going this way, right? Very, very easy loop to run. Super easy. If you need to chain onto a loop quickly, let's say like an Artful's putting down an implement here, right? Then you've got this much smaller, but still pretty nice loop here. You've got quite a lot of visibility here, so it's very difficult to be mind gamed. And you can just run around this a couple times. And again, fucking worst case scenario, Artful puts down an implement here. You know, this Artful, he really likes his implements. Then you've got this here. None of this can really be destroyed. The only things that can be destroyed are these 3 barrels, which are not going to play a factor into the actual loop. It's a small loop, obviously, but, I mean, if you've got nothing else, then make use of it. You may as well. Now, this is where I'd say, you know, you're kind of fucked as a civilian unless you've got help, because this is just a straightaway. There is nothing you can really use here. You can't really loop around this minecart. You can't really loop around this, unfortunately. I have tried. There's not a whole lot you can do in this portion, this little bridge area here, right? There is, however, a lot you can do on this side of the map, right? This loop is really strong. Like, really fucking strong, right? Especially if you're running it this way that I am. You want to be running it this way, because if you run it the opposite way, you run it this way, the killer that can then catch you off guard, also not catch you off guard, sort of cut you off with the full stagger here. and eventually catch up a little bit easier, right? The rest of though, even though there is this killer wall, if you're running around this way, look how easy it is to check spot. Look how easy it is to check spot, right? If they go down here, you just come up here. They keep going, you just keep going as well, right? Super, super easy to check spot, right? And alternatively, if you're being chased around this way, obviously you don't really want to be, but if you are, they're better off just chasing you. They probably will just chase you if they're a smart killer. But if they try and actually trick you with this killer wall, then obviously that puts you in a better situation, because now you're running around the loop this way still. So, now you're running around the loop this way, which is where you want to be. So the killer does have ways to change what way you're running around the loop. Killers preferably want to drop down here. If you're running it around this way, killers will probably want to drop down this way, just so that they can force you to running the loop this way, and get use out the stagger effect. But I mean, the loop is still strong despite that. Again, I'd say there's nothing really you can chain onto here. You can use this if you're in a pinch, you know. I mean, this is more if you get zoned to this portion of the map, you can make use of this. The killer has to come up this way, so you can just drop down there. You'll get the full stagger, but then you can come back here. I guess you could use this, but I don't think you would ever need to. Over here, this can be broken. There is a small loop here. I wouldn't bother trying to use it as a double helix. If you do get zoned over here, I would just run around this rock, to be honest. I'm honestly not even really going to show an example of how you could chain loops, because chaining loops isn't really the point on this map. The point is just the loops themselves. You just want to make use of the loops. You don't really need to be chaining them, right? Unless, like, you know, this gets blocked off. And if it gets blocked off, that's going to be, you know, the killer's going to be an end lag. This gives you ample time to make it over to this loop, right? Which, again, the killer being able to block stuff off, that is honestly the big counter to this map. If you look here, I mean, again, I'm using Artful as an example because he's very easy to block stuff off as. And I like playing Artful because of the skin, right? I mean, if you just look at this, I've blocked that off there. And you can do this, like, pretty easy at the start of the match, sorry. You could just block these two areas off. So, honestly, if you ask me, I don't think this map is terrible for killer. But you got to remember, right, like, what is Pursuer doing? What is Pursuer going to do on this map, right? He just kind of has to keep chasing. He can't really do this, right? And, like, these are huge. This isn't like on Teapot Paradise where now you can take this loop, like, shorter. No, this loop is now pretty much unable to be used, right? And the same can be said over here, right? This loop now, you can't really make use of it. I mean, you just can't at all, you know? You come up here, you're stuck here unless you go down there. Similar thing here. You're stuck here unless you go down there, right? So, yeah, if you ask me, this map is probably the most balanced, but again, for certain kills, I mean, Badware kind of struggles here because, you know, you've got two big loops on opposite sides of the map. You kind of have to pick which one you want to set your computers up on, because if you're playing Badware, you kind of want your computers all in one central area to zone survivors into. So, I mean, some killers are going to struggle still, but a lot of killers, you know, Harkin, Badware, Artful, they have their ways to counter civilians on this map. Okay, moving on to Roblox HQ, I'm going to be honest, I'm very mixed on this map in terms of how strong it is, right? Now, when I first played this map, something stuck out to me like a sore thumb, right? On its own, this looks fucking atrocious. There is no way that I should be able to do this, and that's because you can't, right? Right here, you'll notice that this glass can be shattered, and the same can be said for over this side of the map. As a killer, you can shatter this glass, right? Which means that if a survivor's looping this, you can cut them off extremely easily. You will eventually catch up to them if they go on this loop. Now, that doesn't mean that this can't still be used. I'll show an example of how you can still use it despite this. But that does mean that it is a slight bit weaker than it otherwise could have been, right? This area here, I wouldn't bother too much with this. I mean, you've got, like, the stagger here, and I mean, you've even got, like, a killer door here, so, like, this is pretty, like, pretty useless as a, survivor. Speaking of useless as killer door, by the way, if you're playing killer and someone's sleeping around here, don't try and use this as a way to cut them off. Just chase them, but make use of the, cut-offs. Pretty simple, pretty simple. As for the rest of the map, though, you come over here, this can be destroyed. If it's not destroyed, obviously, you know, you can just use this as one big loop, but killers will destroy this, obviously. So this can be used as a little bit of a double helix. Again, not crazy strong, but it is quite easy to loop around, and you know, it's a solid loop. If you come over this side, you've also got these here, this little cubicle. As a killer, it's very easy on the first time looping this to catch up, because obviously civilians will have to, you know, go around the chairs. Well, you can just cut through them. But obviously once they're gone, that's not going to really be helpful anymore. But this is a pretty solid loop for civilians. Again, this is also just like a little like filler spot that you can make use of. I wouldn't bother with this, but this 100% can be made use if it's a small little L. Always helpful. If you come over here, never go in this area. Just never go in this area. You're just gonna get like zoned. This is the only place I've seen an actual dead zone. You can kind of use this, but you're gonna be getting full stagger. You know, the killer's gonna catch up pretty quickly. I wouldn't bother with this. Just never go to this part of the map. You know, 0 point being here. I mean, the amount of I've been playing Artful quite a lot. The amount of times I've just like done this and trapped like 3 people in here, it's kind of fucking insane. I'm gonna be so real. As for the rest of this like side of the map though, all pretty solid. This is pretty good. You can very nicely use this as a double helix, as you'll see. Very, very nice to loop around. This is probably the strongest part of this side of the map. This is the main thing here. Not a whole lot else, to be honest. I mean, I don't know why this is here. That just seems really misleading. Oh wait, you could break the cones to get up here? Why would I do that, though? What? Okay, whatever. Right. This spot here, this is kind of similar to the Baker Cake ladder. Because I see a load of survivors use this, and they all like waste their abilities here. Let them do that, right? What's more interesting is this here. You can kind of loop around this actually quite nicely, although killers will be able to do this to cut you off. So you only really want to get like... This could be a really nice way to put it, and we'll actually show you how you can make use of this. So let's say that we're starting... I'm going to show an optimal way to make use of this loop here, right? If you check spot this here, right? If you see a killer coming through here... Again, this killer wall is dumb and stupid, right? If you see a killer coming through here, immediately you can just like pick which side you want to go to, right? More likely than not, though, it'll be that a killer comes from one of these sides, and that gives you so much time to pre-run and then go to something else. So if you are coming from this way, I would immediately run... Where would I immediately run to? Probably this little L ball here. Depending on how close they are, you could, you know, run around this once. If they're not close at all, just make it here, regain stamina here, and then make use of this. And then you can potentially chain that onto this right here. Alternatively, though, if you are coming from this here, you're going to want to immediately cut over to this double helix right there. And you'll just want to loop around this, and then eventually you can break off of this, come to here. You're essentially doing the reverse, depending on which side you come out from. A lot of the time, you don't really want to break over to this side. I think this side of the map's generally better. But, I mean, I don't know, maybe there's so many artful walls around here, you just can't really do anything. Your probably best bet is to break off from here, this side of the L wall. You can kind of do it from here, but it's a little bit scuffed. I would try your best to loop around the L wall like this. Again, you can do it pretty easily from using this. Or even, you know, coming from here. If you come around like this, you probably need to get a loop out. And then you can come over to there. Again, you don't want to make use of this. I would make use of this by, you know, when you're, you know, traveling from here to here, you come here, you do this, and you do a little run around here, and then you can come onto the double helix loop. You can make use of this how you want to. And then when you get bored of it, or, you know, there's an artful wall put down here, you can eventually just very simply transition back to this side of the map. So yeah, this map, again, pretty easy to loop as a civilian. I think the killer has some counterplay, but I don't know. I think this map's pretty fucking good for civilians still. Again, there is counterplay. You know, just stick a copyright here if you're artful, obviously. I'd probably stick my copyright, my second one, in the middle of this. Make sure survivors cannot abuse this if you can. You can even put like a implement here if you really want to. That's probably a really good spot to implement, actually. You might be even be able to do it there, but that's definitely stronger. So yeah, you know, there's definitely counters on this map, but it's still, you know, strong. It's still pretty strong, all things considered. moving on to Grandma's Backyard. This is a really good map for civilians because there are a lot of strong loops that are very easy to chain between. Starting off though, I want to talk about what's probably the weakest part of this map. I would not go to this side right here. This includes this portion here, this area, unless you put like a care pad up there. Probably don't want to use this, right? Now this, when you look at it, at first glance, this is insane, right? Look at this loop. Killer can't really mind game. You're just going to have to run round and round and round. But not only is this very narrow, so, you know, any killer that has some sort of way of putting up map pressure can very easily just put it here. There's also a very large drop, so that's going to be a lot of full stagger being put on a civilian. So they're going to catch up pretty quickly as a killer, right? I would only really use this spot if you've got like dash and you can like knock a killer down, or if you've got taunt and you can knock a killer down, then you can make the distance and then make use of this loop once, but then immediately I would transition to a different loop. If you are stuck in this area though, you have got this little rock here. Again, this is more, if you are zoned in this area, be it through like Harkens, like Pillars of Light or whatever, then you want to use this. You don't use this as like, this is my main loop, right? Rest of the map though, pretty fucking busted, right? The church, I mean, I think it's pretty clear why the church is good, right? Just look at this. Look at how you loop this. It is really simple, I'm going to be honest with you. Just super easy to loop round. Now, obviously, there is the killer door, right? The best check spot is by far here. If they come through either of these doors, you just come around this way. If you see them come through this way, make sure that they commit. Don't just like see them like pop out like this and then immediately start running that way, because then they can cut you off here quite nicely. Make sure they are committing. I would probably start running around here as soon as you see them go, probably here, because right at that point they're still running and you can sort of like keep checks there. And if they do come around here, they're kind of wasting their time at that point. This loop was really strong originally, and it still is really strong because this doesn't really do a whole lot. It is very easy to play this very safely. If you're running around this way, if the killer runs up there, it's pretty obvious. You can just double back. Obviously, you know, be wary. They can mind game and, like, you know, fake going up here and then come back round, right? Still, though, it's going to be easy to react to. And, I mean, the same could be said about looping around this way. In fact, it's probably easier to react to here. You can just kind of, if you're really unsure what they're doing, you can just wait here and check spot it very, very easily. This loop's even more brain dead. It's just a big rock, and you can just keep running around it. Not a whole lot else to really be said, in all honesty. And then for the final loop on this map, there's not many loops on this map, but they are, the ones that are here are very strong. Is this cave area, right? I mean, just look at this, right? Come on. So let's start from, for the example, let's actually start from up here, right? Let's say that we are standing up here, maybe we're recovering with like a care pad or something, and then, you know, we see the killer coming around. It's very easy to react to a killer coming up here, so that's probably the only strength this area really has. So you want to drop down quickly, obviously make sure they're committing. If you drop down and then they actually double back this way, very easy for them to just hit you like this, right? But if you're 100% sure that they've committed, you then want to come through here, just loop like this, and then it is very easy to chain onto here, right? Obviously, be careful. Okay, actually looks like they're going to be doubling back. We're just going to run around here, right? And we can chain the loop very smoothly right here. And just as smoothly, we can chain onto the church loop right here. I don't even know how I'm going to, you know, it's like you might not even really need the L loop over there. It's strong, but I mean, you've got this side of the map anyways. But let's say you really want to get over there just for the sake of it, right? Easy. You can loop around this one more time. Oh, they actually are, what's it? They're going to drop down here. Okay, we're going to go back around. And now it is exceptionally easy to go over to this loop here, right? And of course, if they don't double back, then you just keep looping around here anyways, right? It is possible to cut off quite a lot of this map, especially with a killer like Artful, right? There is a lot you can do. You can cut this off. That makes this loop unusable. You can't really do a whole lot for this loop, I don't think. I mean, you can always just put your implements like this. You could always just do an implement in this way, where, you know, a civilian would have to, like, go around, and instead you can just cut through. It's weaker than any other type of it than, you know, just blocking off an entire path. Because then you can use that to put someone into a dead zone. But this still works on like strong loops like this, right? Because I don't think there's a way to like fully block it. This might work. I'm gonna bring my alt account over because I'm actually not sure, to be honest. Do give me a moment. If we come over here, yeah, civilians would be able to just like cut through there. So the only way you're really gonna be able to counter this loops like Artful, for example, is with a wall like this. And I think you could do, you know, the same in this section as well. You can just, if it lets me implement, you can just put a wall here, and then a civilian would be forced to go around. You can cut through, right? Of course, you can implement on here. So I think it is kind of easy to take control of the map as killer. Again, it depends on the killer. Like, if you're playing Pursuer, you're fucked, right? Just do not play Pursuer. Please do not play Pursuer, is my advice, I guess. Yeah, overall, I mean, I don't think I need to say it. It's a strong map. It's like the rest of them. Moving on to the Baseplate. I don't think I need to talk too much about this map without the floodgates open. If you don't know, the floodgates, essentially when they open, it means that this truss comes down and you can now climb it to get up there. And so just this little item becomes accessible, basically. This bridge will then lift up. But apart from that, you can still use anything else in this floodgate area. Now, I can't show it really as killer, but as a civilian, you do not die in this area. You lose oxygen at a very slow rate, and you die when you lose your oxygen. You don't really need to worry about that. If you want to loop in this area, you can. There's really no risk. I think you might be slower, but I actually don't know, to be honest. I've obviously, you know, been on this map before. It doesn't seem slower. You don't get inflicted with a slowness status effect. I don't think you are slower, to be honest. You seem to be the same speed. So you don't even really have that to worry about. So really just use this to your heart's content, right? You don't really need to worry about this. Now, you can loop this area down here. You can do this. Obviously, the killer might be able to get an M1 from here, but I mean, you can loop this very easily. If you just look at this, there's not really a whole lot of risk if you're a civilian here. The only risk is this right here, this killer door, which of course you can just kind of check spot here, right? And worst comes to worst, if they do cut through there, then you want to come over here, and then they're forced to either go this way, which means that you can connect straight back over to the loop, or if they come over from this side, you then have to use this loop, which means that you can just run around here, and this is also quite strong. And if you're running through like this way, their only sort of mind game they can pull is coming over here, which if they do that, then they're stuck over here, and you should get ample time, especially if they like you come around here, to, you know, come over here and get to this side of the map. Which we'll talk about the main loop on this map. I know, I'm not stupid. I know what the main loop is on this map. I'm showing the smaller stuff off first. This isn't really a loop, but you can kind of make use of this. I would use this instead of just running through the open here. You may as well. It connects quite nicely over here, right? To clarify, you don't want to loop around this multiple times. You just want to come through here and then use it as a check spot. You do not want to loop this, because, you know, if you're looping this, then the killer can very easily mind game you by just coming out here and then whacking you, right? You've got little small loops here. You've got small little 2 minecarts, small little rock here. You can make use of these. Can this be broken? No, it can't. If you get zoned to this part of the map, do not feel afraid to use this. You may as well. And that's it, actually. No, it's not. Okay, right. You can use this, right? I'm just going to show off the loop, right? I think we've all probably seen someone use it. It is insane. It is insane that this is allowed, right? Just look at that. I mean, if you want to play extra safe, you know, what's the killer going to do using that if you just come through here, right? There's no risk of, like, stagger. There's nothing. There's nothing. The only risk is still this killer door, which can be mind gamed very easily. Or if you don't even want to mind game it, just go to this loop and check spot it. So I'll show a demonstration, but, like, this is another one of those where it's like, you can chain. It's not like Tundra where you can't really chain loops and you have to just use the 2 strong loops. This is more, there is one very strong loop. Use it. Only, you know, chain to a different loop when necessary, right? Only chain to another loop when, I don't know, this is blocked off by Artful, for example. which I don't. Civilians can definitely get through here. I've seen civilians do it before. Maybe I placed it well actually. I don't know. Right. So yeah, let me just show a demonstration of how you can loop this. Right. Let's do it just this way. Why not? This is probably the weakest way to loop it, to be honest. Right. Which is still very strong if you can't tell. There is a very small stagger effect, but with just how long this loop is, it's not going to play effect. Is it actually quicker to just like cut through here? Maybe not. I don't know. I'm actually going to be. It's very similar. That seems longer to me. Yes, I actually want to go through there instead, actually. So yeah, you can just loop around this. I'm going to be so real. Now, the best way for, again, we're going to use Artful as an example, would be to cut this off. You go down here. And you make use of this. And you go up here. Uh-oh, they're cutting through. Okay, I'll do this. Which way are they going? They're going around that way. They're going around this way. Okay, we'll do this. Yeah, it's kind of hard to show a demonstration on this map because there's rarely a time where you need to leave this loop. And you still, no matter what, you're making some use of this loop, whether it be like this little area where you've got like this small little L rock there, whether it be, you know, the minecarts here, you know, this pillar you can even loop around, you know, everything centers around something that's on this path. So just loop this, and you know, maybe you could even loop this if you really fucking need to. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's Jesus Christ, like this map is ridiculous. This map is so fucking ridiculous. I'm going to be very quick here. This area, there is not a whole lot you can loop here, and it's very dangerous anyways, because obviously you've got him. Do not bother with this area. Never bother with this area. If an Artful is smart, they will just, you know, block you in. So, yeah. No, there is genuinely no point using this area of the map. It is just going to be risky, right? Don't bother. There's nothing to loop around. It's a really weak portion map. Now, honestly, this map as a whole is not that great, if you ask me. It's definitely got a lot of small loops, but they can be chained to pretty decently. So there's nothing that, like most maps we've seen so far, they do have like a lot of small loops, but they have like at least one big loop. This one, there's no real big loop. It is all just going to be, you know, chaining around the map, which I think makes it more fun at least, right? We'll start with this area. This area is pretty weak, to be honest. You've got this area which can be pretty nice to use to pivot to other parts of the map. Come around this way, you can do this. Or, I mean, come around this way, you can do this as well. So, all kind of centers around this little portion, which can be pretty easily mind gamed by killers if you're using this entire bit. Like, here is really easy to mind game. You know, you are not going to have much time to really react to if they go this way or this way, right? So this part, I would say, is pretty unsafe. But this little wall here can definitely be quite useful. It can be very easy to then come over to here, which then can chain you over to this little tomb here, which is another little small loop that you can make use of. I didn't mention it because I don't think it's really on the path there. But again, you've got a small loop here. Make use of that. You may as well, right? And then you've got this portion of the map. Well, there's a couple things that could be broken here. A killer's going to want to break all of these, including this. This is very important to break, right? And this portion, you'll notice, doesn't really have like a big loop, but it has a lot of small little loops. This is what I refer to as a jungle gym. There's not really many of these in Die of Death. They're more common. You'll see it, obviously, they're in Dead by Daylight. That's where the time really comes from. They're quite common to see in Forsaken as well. They're essentially sections that just have a lot of like walls randomly placed around, or well, randomly, right? And you can just basically use all of this, right? You can loop this in so many different ways. I'm not going to show like literally every single one, but you can just kind of see. Think of it, you know, it's similar to how you would loop like a double helix, right? You're constantly moving from obstacle to obstacle, right? And it's pretty simple to do, right? Now, there are things that the killers can do. They can, you know, obviously maybe put an implement there, which is fine. You then just have to, like, you know, make sure you don't get mind gamed, and you can make use of this, and then probably just try and leave the loop at that point, right? There's also this right here, which you can honestly try and loop around this, because, I mean, the killer can, like, go through there, but then you just, like, check spot it anyways, you know? So, you can try and make use of that. It's not, like, the safest, but you can do it. Then you got this rock here. This is honestly probably the best spot on the map. I don't know what it is, but this rock just seems to be really fucking effective against killers. It's worked for me quite a few times. I mean, just kind of look at it, bro. And this also here is a nice little double helix type port section. So let's do a little demonstration. We'll just start from the back corner here. As I mentioned, this is a good spot to be able to pivot to the rest of the map, right? So we'll wait here. We'll say the killer comes up through this staircase. Then we'll go down here, right? We'll get a loop out of this wall. And then we'll change over to here. We'll try and loop around this a couple times, right? Just a little bit, right? And then we'll come over here. We go around this maybe once. I wouldn't really do it more than that. And then we come around here. Just imagine the wall's not there. And then, we're going to use this as just a jungle gym, right? Pretty simple to use. Eventually, you can break off of it. Again, I don't really see a whole lot of using this because it can be mind games. In this scenario, where they're probably, if they're chasing you from like here and you're going through here, they are just wasting their time if they go up there. Honestly, I don't think to check spot this, try and see if you can loop it if you can. If you can't, at least from here, just go over to this rock. Don't try and continue using that loop. From the rock, you can then go over to this double helix. And then obviously, for demonstration's sake, you then go to like here or whatever, right? I guess then to show how you could maybe do this on this side, if you're running through this way and they try and mind game you, just run over here. Run over here, and you can get to this spot, regain stamina, and then you'll be able to pivot to somewhere else on the map. Again, I would say this map is on the weaker side when it comes to looping, although it's still pretty solid. You just gotta, actually use your brain on this one, which is, at least it's a start. So that's really all I have to say about the maps in this game. There is quite a lot that you can use as a killer, quite evidently, right? Or sorry, as a civilian, right? A lot of these maps are not very well balanced, I'm going to be so real with you, right? So hopefully this at least shows to anyone who still believes that the game is, killer-sided for some reason, how it's not, and is in fact heavily survivor-sided, right? It is very easy to chain loops. That is my whole sentiment that I want to be saying here. If you enjoyed this, maybe I'll do other content. This is a bit different to what I usually do. I don't really do showcases of what you can do in games. I just kind of either talk. That's most of what I do actually. If I upload, right? I might make more DEPLORABLE stuff. I don't know if I will. I do enjoy the game, but I don't know. I think the map's the only thing that I find really interesting to discuss when it comes to balance. The killers themselves are just kind of fine to talk about. Maybe I'll do some talk about civilian abilities. Who knows, right? Anyways, I hope you enjoyed. Again, smash like, subscribe, hit the bell notification to become a little screw that I'll use to build my next table with. And with that, fucking see ya.